Residents are waking up, Jonathan, to yet another day of devastation following Friday's overwhelming storm.
Yeah, the numbers are unbearable. The death toll now rising to over 100 people, with at least 170 still missing across that devastated area. NBC News national correspondent Morgan Chesky has the latest on the search for survivors, that desperate search, and the harrowing stories of those impacted by these fatal floods.
This morning in the grief-stricken Texas Hill Country, hope of finding survivors from Friday's devastating flooding is fading. Yet despite the odds, volunteers like Huntley Dantzler refusing to give up.
Biggest thing we're looking for places where there has not been foot traffic.
These before and after satellite images providing a glimpse at the enormous scope and scale of the historic disaster. Local officials facing questions about why so many were caught off guard by the fast-rising floodwaters.
Was the emergency manager awake at the time? Did they push the button to issue an emergency alert?
Sir, it's not that easy when you just push a button.
Did it happen, sir?
I can't tell you at this time.
Governor Abbott stressing the state was prepared.
Who's to blame? Know this. That's the word choice of losers. Let me explain one thing about Texas. And that is, Texas, every square inch of our state cares about football. The losing teams are the ones that try to point out who's to blame. The way winners talk is not to point fingers.
It comes as records obtained by NBC News shows that Camp Mystic had an emergency plan in place. Texas officials signing off on it just 2 days before the floods. Meanwhile, we're learning more about the victims, including 9-year-old Lainey Landry, a Camp Mystic attendee. Her family's church posting a photo from Lainey's first communion. This photo showing one of the cabins full of girls that was overwhelmed. Several of the children now confirmed dead. Some young survivors sharing their stories, like 10-year-old Lucy Kennedy.
I woke up to really loud thunder. I just had a gut feeling that something bad was about to happen.
Lucy, a Mystic camper just like her mother Wynn, recounting the traumatic experience from Friday morning.
People from different cabins started coming to our porch and yelling wake up and go to rec hall because there's a flood.
Evacuated by helicopter, the 10-year-old soon looked down on a summer paradise turned Texas tragedy.
That was NBC's Morgan Chesky with that report. And joining us now live from Kerrville, Texas, is NBC News national correspondent Aaron Gilchrist. Aaron, what's the latest there?
Well, today is going to be another day of intensive search efforts for folks in this county and Kerr County here, as well as in other places around the area, because there are still a lot of people who are missing. We talked about the fact that yesterday we finally got a number from, it came from Governor Abbott here, but the local officials also were able to say that they are still looking for upwards of 160 people. Just in Kerr County alone, 12 people in other places that were impacted by the flooding here. And the governor indicated that that number could change. It could get bigger as they're able to collect more information. They've had people reaching out to officials here in Texas looking for people that they can't find. And so officials were able to take that information from callers and cross-reference it with the list that they're developing of those who have already been discovered deceased and figure out that they need to find at least another 160 people. And so we've seen these search and rescue teams across the state of Texas, coming from other states as well, arriving here over the last few days from several other states. And they're going to be continuing this effort in the air, on the ground, as well as on the water, looking for people as they've been doing for the last several days now. At the same time, we are getting bits of information about the impact outside of the individual, the people impact that we've seen in terms of death here. There have also been instances where people are trying to sort of put their lives back together, people who survived the flooding. You may be able to see some of the debris behind me outside this home. And this is a house that was impacted by about, we think, maybe 3 feet of water came inside this home up from the Guadalupe River. And the homeowners have had to pull out all the things in their home that was ruined, And this is really the reality that many families in this area are having to deal with, trying to put their lives back together after devastation. Even those who didn't lose a loved one are going to have to deal with a dramatic change in their lives. The city has said that They believe there are millions of cubic yards of debris all over the city of Kerrville, for example. They are going to use unused soccer fields to try to get all this debris into central places so they can start to get rid of it at some point. At the same time, we understand that the stormwater plant here in Kerrville also was severely damaged by the flooding. And so there is a lot of work, a lot of recovery that still needs to be done in so many communities around this central Texas region, John. It's going to take weeks for the search effort to go forward, and it could take that long or longer for this community to totally recover.
So, Aaron, let me ask you about something we just heard in Morgan's package of a moment ago. Obviously, it's an area just stricken with grief, but he says there's also a sense of rising anger at the lack of preparations, at the lack of response, at how the local, state, even federal government is responding. Are you picking up on that? What are people you're seeing there? What are they saying?
So I'm hearing a little bit of both. There are people here who have expressed their gratitude, obviously, to the first responders who are doing the heavy lifting here, if you will. And also, they've said that they feel as though the city did what it needed to do to be helpful to them in the earliest hours after this disaster. But there are other people who are upset that they didn't get the sort of warning that they would expect when there is such a massive flooding incident in this area. We've talked about the fact that there are no sirens here in Kerr County. There are some a little farther down river, but in this area, people feel like they didn't get the sort of warning that they should have been able to get. You saw the sheriff here was asked, who was in charge, who was processing information as it was coming in from the National Weather Service, who was making decisions about whether there needed to be evacuations or alerts. Was that person awake at 1 a.m. when that biggest alert, the first big alert, came from the National Weather Service on Friday morning, and the sheriff wasn't able to answer that question. There was going to be another briefing this morning in about an hour or so, I think, and that question will come up again for the sheriff. We are looking for some accounting of when city and county officials here knew that there was going to be a major flooding event. Even if they didn't know it was going to be 30 feet of water, when did they know it was going to be a significant flooding event, and what actions did they take and when to try to make sure they could save some lives, John?
And Aaron, lastly, do you have a sense that there'll also be questions about what the community is doing for the next time? There will be another storm. This is an era of climate change. They're increasing frequency and strength. The next storm could be just weeks away, perhaps. What are some interim measures being taken there to make sure something like this doesn't happen again?
In the short term, it really isn't a question that's been answered. Again, we've been asking about the alerts and what they're doing to make sure people are getting information. The National Weather Service very early on came out and said it used every resource that it had available to try to get the word out about the coming flood potential. And then once the flooding started, they used their typical channels of communication, social media. They alerted localities as they do with information, and they were hopeful that people would get the alerts. People's cell phones went off at 1 o'clock in the morning on Friday. If you've ever heard that Amber Alert sound on your cell phone, that's the sort of sound that people would have gotten on their phones if they had service or they were in an area or if they had that function turned on their phones. And so now the conversation has turned to, why aren't there sirens installed in this county that has a riverbank that is in a floodplain, a known floodplain, a place that is called Flash Flood Alley? And that's something that we've heard state officials say it's a conversation to have now, and the money needs to be found immediately to start installing that sort of a system. We'll be watching, John, to see exactly when that actually happens. If the money's there, then how quickly can they get those sirens up for another potential event?
All right, NBC News national correspondent Aaron Gilchrist reporting live from Kerrville, Texas. Thank you very much for your reporting.